So my name's Dave. I'm co-founder of a company called Dhali, and I'm going to be talking to you guys about a little less decentralization, a little more transaction. So what is Dhali? When I speak to people, typically people who aren't blockchain guys, I describe us as a payments company for API providers. And so I like to think that we make API payments basically work the way that I think they should work. So what do I mean by that? So old-fashioned API payments, this is how I typically think about how they work. So it's a bit of a convoluted process. You've got a client, a user on the left-hand side. You've got an API on the right-hand side in the top corner. I've labeled this as a ChatGPT. That's a pretty common API that gets used these days. And the user, they have to go through these multiple stages to access the API. So first of all, they typically register, they hand over some details, click a few checkboxes. They then go to stage 2, make a decision about a subscription, typically get locked in for a month, potentially more. And once they've subscribed, they receive an API key. And this is the thing that allows them to get past this final stage, step 3, and access the API that they want to access. So it's a bit of a convoluted process. I think it could be simpler. So what we do at Dhali is we bring payment and usage of the API together. So we embed payments directly into requests. So this is what I think API payments done right looks like. So you've got a client on the left, got an API on the right. Again, ChatGPT, it's very common these days. And when the client wants to use the API, they just pay. They just embed a payment directly into the request, and they access the API. So we call this process of sort of authenticating such requests as authentication by payment. So if we're thinking about if we're thinking about embedding payments into every request, probably want to understand how many API calls take place on a daily basis. And so the answer globally is trillions. So that, yeah, there are trillions of API calls that are taking place on a daily basis. And if we contrast this with blockchains, so blockchains are typically processing around 100 million transactions a day. Maybe that's a push. And so, yeah, you quickly conclude single API payments on-chain. It's way too inefficient. It's not going to work. And so another way that I describe what it is that Dhali does, or who we are, is we're a hub for off-chain API payments, so as opposed to on-chain payments. And so this is what we look like. So we've got API users on the left-hand side. We've got API providers on the right-hand side. And we sit in the middle as a hub. So requests come through from users with payments embedded. We, in real time, cryptographically verify the off-chain payment. And then if it's good, we forward the request on to the API provider and give the user what they requested. And so this is the typical user experience that an API user goes through when they're going to create an off-chain payment. So so we've got this client here, pay.dhali.io. Sort of think of this as an off-chain payment manager that makes it easy for users to create off-chain payments. So yeah, the user is going to create an off-chain payment using that client, pay.dhali.io. It's effectively just a string of characters, represents an off-chain payment, and they embed the off-chain payment directly into the request. So we've got a little diagram here, little image. So they embed the payment into the payment claim header, and then if they were interested in accessing XRPL Clusters API, they would have originally gone to xrplcluster.com. Now they go via us. So they go to xrplcluster.dhali.io. And then everything else stays the same. So all subsequent paths, all query strings, body of the request, headers, it all stays the same. We just forward that to XRPL cluster. We have an agreement with XRPL cluster that this is what we're going to be doing. And XRPL cluster gives us rate unlimited access to their API. So these are some of the people that we're working with. So some of these guys are users. Some of these guys are API providers. Some of these guys are wallets. In the middle, we've got these chains that we support. So we support XRPL. We're at an XRPL conference, not surprising. We also, as an immediate consequence of that, we support Zahao as well. So, yeah. OK. Demo's coming up soon. So I like to think about how a system like ours could support AI agents in the future. So, like, I imagine AI agents, they need quick, on-demand access to data in real time. And I think that a system like ours would allow them to pay for that in real time without having to jump from subscription to subscription repeatedly. So I think a system like ours would enable much more efficient access to data. So if we can play this demo. No sound.
We just need to add an action by clicking here. We give the GPT an open API spec, which defines BitHump's Dhali linked API for the GPT. To allow it to pay for the API, we just give it the custom payment claim header. Let's go to Dhali and create a payment claim. We'll add the payment claim as the key. That's it. Let's update the GPT. Now our GPT can get high-rate access to BitHump's API. Let's get some AMM info. The GPT just paid BitHump 0.0005 XRP for this information. Let's ask another question. Again, BitHump just got paid another 0.0005 XRP for this information.
So it's a quick recap of what happened there. So we effectively just gave ChatGPT the ability. We gave it an off-chain payment, and we told it about BitHump's. BitHump is an API provider. We told it about BitHump's API, how it's structured, what it looks like, and it was then just able to use BitHump's API and pay for it. And it would have been able to get high-rate access to BitHump's API as well. So how do off-chain payments work? We're not going to go into much detail. The answer is payment channels. Payment channels are a specific type of blockchain object that exists on the XRP ledger. And roughly speaking, a little bit technical, they're effectively just a 2 of 2 multi-sig account with a little bit of settle delay logic sprinkled on top, which basically determines when and how XRP or another currency gets settled from the payment channel when you claim from it or when you close it. And basically, payment channels, they're all just about enabling trust minimized off-chain payments, which is what we're doing, which is what we're interested in. Why are we interested? Well, payment channels, off-chain payments. If you're doing on-chain payments, you'd be at about 1,500 transactions a second at a push. If you take them off-chain, effectively, you get infinite scalability of your transaction rates. So you can push your transaction rates up to infinite, in theory. So another way that I sometimes describe what it is that Dhali does is we are a payment channel management service. So we manage payment channels for API users. So I'm coming to the end of this talk now. So one thing that I think about the blockchain community is I think we've moved on a lot over the years. The reason that I say that is that we don't have this argument anymore. We're not obsessing in forums about whose chain is more centralized than who else's chain, which I think that's a good thing. Those weren't the best of times. And actually, also, some of the most successful blockchain products, they introduce elements of centralization. We see this all the time. Good example, Polymarket. Polymarket, they're a prediction marketplace. They're built on Ethereum. They're a blockchain product. And they introduce centralization in the form of market resolution. Stablecoins, massively, massively successful, processing billions and billions of dollars a day. They're a blockchain product. They're issued on multiple blockchains. They introduce centralization in the form of reserves. And so Dhali, us, could argue, we introduce elements of centralization. So liquidity gets centralized in payment channels. API providers, they actually trust us at the moment to pay out to them on a 24-hour cadence. That's what's going on there. When we claim from the payment channel of the user, we pay out to the API provider with trust. Why are we doing it? Well, we do it for a reason: performance, efficiency, massively, massively increase throughput. And so, I think that's why I think a little less decentralization, a little more transaction. Thanks.